They thought you were finished. They thought you were broken beyond repair. But what they didn't know is that everything you lost is about to be restored. Greater, stronger, and more powerful than before. For too long, you carried burdens that were never meant to be yours. You gave your all to people who drained you, sacrificed for those who never once considered what you needed, and held up a world that only took from you. You were the foundation they stood on, the light that guided them, the strength they leaned on. But when you needed help, who was there? When you were exhausted, who lifted you up? No one. And yet, they assumed you would always be there, that your strength was infinite, that no matter how much they took, you would never run out. But even the strongest warriors grow weary. Even the brightest lights flicker when left neglected for too long. You reached your breaking point, not because you were weak, but because you were human. And in that moment, when you finally chose yourself, when you walked away from what no longer served you, they thought it was over for you. They whispered that you had nothing left, that without them you would fade into nothingness. They laughed, they doubted, they celebrated your supposed downfall. But they forgot one thing. Chosen ones don't break. We rise. What looked like a loss was simply a reset. What seemed like destruction was really preparation. The setbacks, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, they weren't meant to destroy you. They were meant to refine you. You were never being punished. You were being positioned. Everything that was stripped from you, every door that was slammed in your face, every moment of isolation you endured, it was all leading to this, the restoration you never saw coming. The time has come. What was taken from you is being returned, not as it was, but better. You're about to see why things had to fall apart, why you had to walk alone for a season, why you had to lose what you once thought was everything, because now you are stepping into something greater than you ever imagined. The power, the opportunities, the love, the success, the peace, it's all aligning. You didn't lose. You were simply being prepared for what was always meant to be yours. Are you ready? Because everything changes now. They told you it was over, that everything you worked for, everything you loved, everything you sacrificed for was gone forever. They let you believe that your struggles were meaningless, that your pain was just suffering with no purpose. But they were wrong. Every hardship, every loss, every betrayal was not a sign of your downfall. You see, life wasn't breaking you, it was preparing you. It was stripping away everything that was never meant to stay. The relationships that drained you, the people who used you, the situations that kept you small. They had to be removed. And yes, it was painful. Yes, it felt unfair. Yes, there were nights when you questioned if you would ever feel whole again. But through it all, something inside of you was growing. Even in the silence, even in the loneliness, even when you felt forgotten, you were transforming. What they stole from you is being returned. But not in the way you expect. It's not coming back as it was. It's coming back stronger, purer, with more power than before. The love you lost will be replaced by a love that truly sees you. The opportunities that slipped through your fingers will be replaced by doors so wide they were worth the wait. The time you thought was wasted was never wasted at all. It was an investment in the person you have now become. Look at yourself. You have endured storms that would have destroyed others. You have walked through fire and come out refined. You have learned to stand alone, and in doing so, you have become untouchable. They thought you were left with nothing, but what they didn't realize is that you were never empty. You were being made ready. And now, everything that was delayed, everything that was denied, everything you thought you lost forever is returning to you, not because you begged for it, not because you chased it, but because you finally became the person strong enough to receive it. This is your season of restoration, not a repeat of the past, but a new beginning built on wisdom, strength, and the undeniable power of a soul that refused to be broken. They thought they drained you. They thought they took everything. your energy, your kindness, your willingness to give without question. They fed off your strength, mistaking it for weakness, believing you would always be there to catch them when they fell. But what they never realized was that while they were taking, while they were leaning, while they were using you as their foundation, you were growing in ways they couldn't see. Because strength is not built in comfort, it is not forged in easy days or in the presence of people who only seek to benefit from you. Strength is built in solitude, in moments when no one is watching, when you are forced to hold yourself together with nothing but your own willpower. It is built in the silence after betrayal, in the darkness after loss, in the emptiness left behind when those you once carried decide you are no longer of use to them. They thought they had weakened you, but in reality, they freed you. You see, what they mistook for your breaking point was actually your rebirth. While they were busy underestimating you, you were reclaiming yourself. The strength they thought they stole never left. It was simply waiting for the moment you would turn inward and find it again. And now it is no longer theirs to drain. It no longer exists for their benefit. It belongs to you, and you alone. This is why they fear you now. Not because you are angry, not because you seek revenge, but because you are no longer someone they can manipulate, control, or depend on. You have stepped into a power they never wanted you to recognize. You no longer give freely to those who do not appreciate you. You no longer explain yourself to those who never tried to understand. You no longer exist for their comfort at the expense of your own well-being. You are stronger than they ever imagined, not in the way they defined strength, through endurance and silent suffering, but in the way that matters most, through the ability to walk away and never look back. And now, as they sit in the space you once filled, desperate to find another version of you, they are finally beginning to understand. You were never weak. You were never dependent. You were never theirs to use. You were always destined to rise, and now, nothing can stop you. They told you it was over. They made you believe that what you lost was gone forever, that the opportunities had passed, that the love had faded, that the dreams you once carried had been shattered beyond repair. They wanted you to accept defeat, to settle for less, to believe that life had taken more from you than it would ever give back. But what they didn't understand is that nothing truly meant for you is ever lost. What is yours, what has always been yours, is making its way back to you in ways you never expected. Life has a way of teaching lessons through loss. It strips away the things we once held tightly, forcing us to confront what we are without them. It takes away the job, the relationship, the friendships, the security, sometimes all at once, until we are left standing in the ruins of what we thought would last forever. And in those moments, it is easy to believe the lie that you will never recover, that the best of your life has already passed. The world tells you to move on, to let go, to accept that some things were simply not meant to be. But deep in your soul, there has always been a whisper, a quiet, unshakable knowing that your story was never meant to end in loss. Because what you thought was gone was never truly taken from you. It was only delayed. The doors that closed were not locked forever. They were simply waiting for you to become the person strong enough to walk through them. The love that left you was not love at all, but a false version of it, making space for something real. The opportunities that slipped through your fingers were not lost chances, but redirections to something greater. Everything that felt like an ending was really a preparation for the moment when restoration would begin. And that moment is now. You have spent so long believing you were left behind, that life moved forward without you, that you were somehow forgotten. But the truth is, nothing was ever taken from you. It was simply being prepared for its return. The time you thought was wasted was never wasted at all. The pain you endured was not meaningless suffering, but a refining fire shaping you into the person who would be ready to receive everything that is coming. And now you are stepping into a season where what was once lost will be restored, not as it was, but as it was always meant to be. This is the part they never expected. They thought you would stay broken. that you would accept the emptiness and resign yourself to a life of settling. They thought you would be too tired to start again, too defeated to hope for more. But what they failed to understand is that true restoration is never about returning to what was. It is about stepping into what is greater. You are not the same person who once mourned those losses. You are not the same soul who once begged for things that were never meant to last. You have grown, you have healed, and now you are ready. Everything you thought you lost is making its way back to you, but not in the form you once knew. The love that comes will be deeper, more genuine, without conditions or selfish motives. The opportunities that arrive will align with who you are now, not who you once were. The peace that settles into your life will not be temporary, but lasting, unshakable, built on the foundation of the wisdom and strength you have gained. And the best part? This time no one can take it from you, because you no longer chase. You no longer beg for what is yours. You no longer hold on to things that were never meant to stay. You have learned that what truly belongs to you will always find its way back, not through force, not through fear, but through alignment. You are no longer seeking validation, approval, or permission. You are simply allowing what is meant for you to arrive, knowing that it was always destined to be yours. And this time, you will not question whether you are worthy of it. This time you will not hesitate when the blessings come. This time you will not shrink yourself to make others comfortable, because everything you lost was never truly lost. It was waiting for the moment when you were ready to receive it fully, without fear, without doubt, without apology. That moment has come. So let them watch. Let those who doubted you, who counted you out, who believed you would never rise again, sit in their disbelief. Let them see what happens when a soul refuses to be broken, when a heart chooses to remain open despite the pain, when a spirit decides that no amount of loss can define its worth. Because what is happening now, what is unfolding in your life, is not just a return to what once was. It is the arrival of something greater than you ever imagined. You did not lose, you did not fail, you were not forgotten. You were simply being prepared for everything that is now coming your way. And as you step forward, as you embrace the restoration that was always meant to be yours, remember this: what is yours cannot be taken. What is meant for you will always find you. And the best is not behind you, it is right in front of you, waiting for you to claim it. They never thought they would miss you. They never imagined a world where you were no longer within reach, no longer available, no longer pouring into them without hesitation. They believed you would always be there, always forgiving, always putting them first, no matter how many times they took you for granted. You were the safety net they never acknowledged, the quiet strength they leaned on, the constant presence they assumed would never waver. The crazy wish they knew what they were missing. They mistook your loyalty for dependence, your kindness for weakness, your patience for permission. And now they are drowning in the absence they never thought they would have to face. At first they were unbothered. They told themselves you would be back, that your absence was temporary, that you needed them more than they ever needed you. They convinced themselves that you were replaceable, that they could find someone else to fill the space you left behind. So they moved on quickly, or at least they tried to. They distracted themselves with meaningless connections, sought validation in places that could never compare to the love and loyalty you once gave so freely. They tried to rebuild their world without you, confident that nothing had truly changed. But then, reality set in. They started to notice the silence, the emptiness, the undeniable shift in their world. The people they thought could replace you lacked the depth, the warmth, the unwavering presence that made you irreplaceable. The conversations felt hollow. The support they once took for granted was nowhere to be found. The reassurance that your presence once gave them had vanished, and slowly they began to realize what they had lost. It was never just about you being there. It was about who they were when you were. You made them feel stronger, more confident, more important than they actually were. Your energy was the foundation on which they built their self-worth, their security, their sense of power. And now, stripped of your presence, they are left exposed. The strength they thought they had was never their own. It was borrowed from you. The confidence they flaunted was not real. It was a reflection of your unwavering support. The success they claimed was not truly theirs. It was built on your sacrifices. Now they feel it. The weight of every moment they dismissed you. Every time they overlooked your needs. Every instance they assumed you would always be there. They replay the memories. The nights you stayed up listening to their problems. The days you showed up when no one else did. The times you forgave them even when they never deserved it. And with each memory, a deeper regret sets in. Not just because they lost you, but because they now see the truth. They were not the strong ones. They were not the ones in control. They were not the ones holding everything together. You were. And now they are the ones struggling, searching for something, someone, to replace what you once gave so effortlessly. But the truth they are slowly coming to accept is this: there is no replacement for you. There is no one else who will care the way you did, who will sacrifice the way you did, who will give without expectation the way you did. They mistook your presence for a privilege they were entitled to, not a gift they should have cherished, and now they are forced to live with the consequences. But their regret is not your responsibility. Their suffering is not yours to ease. The guilt they now carry is not your burden to bear. Because the truth is, they did not lose you. You chose to walk away. And that choice was not made out of anger or revenge, but out of self-respect. For too long you gave without receiving. You poured into people who only knew how to take. You made space for those who never made space for you. But those days are over. You no longer exist for their comfort at the expense of your own well-being. You no longer shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. You no longer entertain apologies, soaked in manipulation, disguised as love, wrapped in desperation. They may reach out. They may try to pull you back in with words they should have said long ago, with promises they should have kept when they had the chance. But you have learned the difference between genuine remorse and the fear of losing control. You know that if they truly valued you, they would have never risked losing you in the first place. And that knowledge is the very thing that sets you free. So let them sit in their regret. Let them wrestle with the reality that they took for granted something they will never have again. Let them feel the emptiness of a world without you in it, because their suffering is not your concern. Your only concern now is stepping into the life that was waiting for you all along. The life you were too busy holding others up to fully embrace. This is your season of restoration, of self-respect, of reclaiming everything you once gave away so freely. And this time, you will not allow those who never valued you to have access to the version of you that has finally learned your worth. Let them miss you, let them regret, let them finally understand what they lost, but never, not for a single moment, let that regret become your reason to look back. You are moving forward, and nothing, not their sorrow, not their apologies, not their realization of your worth, will ever be enough to bring you back to what you have already outgrown. They never thought you would rise without them. They believed that once you left, you would struggle, that you would falter, that without their presence in your life, you would remain stuck, lost, unable to rebuild. They assumed that the comfort, the love, the sense of belonging you once provided was something you needed more than they did. But they were wrong. Because now, as you step into this new season, you are not just regaining what you lost, you are walking into overflow. For so long you gave endlessly, believing that love meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant endurance, that being there for others meant neglecting yourself. You were the provider, the nurturer, the one who fixed, healed, and carried everything on your back. You held families together, relationships together, friendships together, workplaces together, giving more than you had, pouring from a cup that was never refilled. And in return, they gave you just enough to keep you going, just enough to make you believe that one day, if you kept giving, it would finally be your turn to receive. But that moment never came. Because people who take without giving never intend to return what they have drained. They build their comfort on your sacrifice, their ease on your exhaustion, their joy on your silent suffering. And the more you gave, the less they appreciated it. The more you bent to accommodate them, the more they expected you to break without complaint. They mistook your giving nature for weakness, your kindness for obligation, your presence for something they would never have to earn. And yet, despite all they took, despite all the ways they drained you, they never saw what was happening beneath the surface. They never realized that while they were consuming all you had to give, something inside of you was shifting. There came a moment, a quiet, undeniable moment, when you realized that you were not being loved, you were being used. That you were not being appreciated, you were being depended on. That the moment you stopped giving, the moment you stopped bending, their love would disappear, revealing itself for what it truly was: convenience. That moment changed everything. Because the day you chose yourself was the day everything began to shift. The day you decided that you were worthy of the same energy you had spent years giving to others, the entire dynamic changed. You stopped waiting for reciprocity, stopped hoping for change, stopped believing that if you just held on a little longer, they would finally see your worth. You realized that real love does not come at the cost of your own well-being, that real loyalty is not one-sided, that real relationships do not require you to shrink yourself just to be accepted. And when you made that decision, when you finally walked away from what was draining you, the universe responded. Because the moment you remove what is no longer serving you, what is truly meant for you begins to arrive. Everything you thought you lost was never lost. It was simply being withheld, waiting for you to create space for what was meant to come. The love that felt impossible, the peace that seemed out of reach, the opportunities you believed had passed you by, they were never gone. They were waiting for you to stop settling, waiting for you to stop begging, waiting for you to realize that you were never meant to survive on scraps, when you were destined for overflow. And now, that season has arrived. This time, you are not just getting back what you gave, you are receiving more. More love, more abundance, more peace, more clarity, more joy than you have ever known. Not because you fought for it, not because you chased it, but because you finally let go of what was blocking it from reaching you. You see, you were never being punished. The emptiness, the loneliness, the loss, it was not a sign that you were forgotten. It was a sign that you were being redirected, that you were being prepared for something far greater than what you were willing to settle for. And now, the ones who once took you for granted are watching in disbelief. They see the glow in your eyes, the confidence in your step, the undeniable peace that surrounds you, and they do not understand. Because they believed that you needed them. They believed that without their validation, their presence, their approval, you would never thrive. They never expected you to rise higher, to become stronger, to be happier without them than you ever were in their presence. And that realization, that they were never the source of your power, only the ones who kept you from fully stepping into it, is what haunts them the most. But their confusion is not your concern. Their regret is not your burden. The only thing that matters now is the life you are walking into, the abundance that is now flowing into your world. This time, you will not question whether you deserve it. This time, you will not hesitate to receive. Because you now understand that you were never meant to pour endlessly into others while being left empty yourself. You were never meant to love so deeply without being loved in return. You were never meant to exist in spaces where you were only valued for what you could give, rather than for who you are. This time, you are stepping into a life where you are surrounded by people who pour into you as much as you pour into them. Where love is not something you have to earn, but something that flows freely. Where opportunities do not require you to beg or prove your worth, but come naturally because they were always meant for you. This time, you are not living in survival mode. You are living in abundance. And there is no going back. Because once you experience what it feels like to be truly valued, to be fully at peace, To exist in a space where your presence is not only appreciated but celebrated, you can never again accept less. You can never again return to the people who only loved you when you were giving, to the relationships that only worked when you were sacrificing, to the spaces that only welcomed you when you made yourself small. You have stepped into overflow, into the season of receiving everything you once gave and more. And this time, you will not let it slip through your fingers, because now you know the truth. The truth that was hidden from you for so long. The truth they never wanted you to realize. You were never meant to live in lack. You were always meant to walk in abundance. And now, finally, that abundance is yours. They told you that you would never make it without them. They spoke with certainty, as if your success, your happiness, your very existence depended on their presence in your life. They believed that you needed their validation, their approval, their permission to rise. And so when you walked away, they convinced themselves it was only a matter of time before you would return, humbled, desperate, broken, without them. But they were wrong, because something shifted the moment you left. The weight you carried, the exhaustion that clung to your spirit, the constant struggle of trying to prove your worth to people who never truly saw you, it all began to fade. And for the first time in a long time, you could breathe. For the first time, you could hear your own voice without the noise of their judgments, without the heavy expectations they placed upon you. For the first time, you were free. At first, it felt unfamiliar. You had spent so much of your life seeking love, seeking recognition, seeking spaces that would finally make you feel like you belonged. You had given and given, hoping that one day someone would look at you and say, "I see you, I appreciate you, I value you." But that day never came, not with them. They didn't love you for who you were, they loved you for what you provided. And when you finally realized that, everything changed. You stopped seeking. You stopped chasing people who were content with watching you suffer. You stopped begging for love that should have been freely given. You stopped believing that you had to earn your place in the lives of those who never made space for you. And in that stillness, in that quiet moment of truth, something incredible happened. Everything you once ran after began to find you. Because the love you deserve was never meant to be chased. The opportunities aligned for you were never meant to be forced. The peace you longed for was never meant to be negotiated. And now, as you stand fully in your power, no longer waiting for permission to exist, you see the truth that was always there. You were never the one in need. They were. They needed your energy, your presence, your light. They needed your unwavering support, your ability to carry the weight of their burdens, your resilience to keep things together when they would have crumbled on their own. They built their confidence on your loyalty, their self-worth on your sacrifices, their comfort on the unspoken promise that you would always be there. And now that you're gone, they are struggling in ways they never imagined. They told themselves they wouldn't miss you. They laughed when you left, mocked your absence, convinced themselves that they could easily replace what you once brought into their lives. But the reality is far different from what they expected, because now, as they move through the world, they are faced with an undeniable truth. There is no replacing you. They will try, of course. They will surround themselves with new people, with distractions, with temporary fixes meant to fill the void you left behind. But none of it will work. Because what you gave was never just surface-level affection. It was depth. It was real. It was the kind of presence that cannot be manufactured, the kind of energy that cannot be duplicated. And as much as they try to pretend otherwise, they feel the loss every single day. They feel it in the spaces where your voice used to be. They feel it in the moments where your reassurance once gave them peace. They feel it in the weight of their own insecurities, once softened by your unwavering support. And no matter how much time passes, no matter how many distractions they throw in their path, that emptiness remains. because they didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves that only existed because you were there. But here's the most powerful part. None of this is your burden to carry. Their suffering is not your responsibility. Their regret is not your concern. The lessons they are now being forced to learn are theirs and theirs alone. Because the truth is, you spent years trying to teach them how to value you. You gave them chance after chance, hoping that one day they would realize what they had before it was too late. But some people only understand value in its absence. Some people can only grasp the weight of their actions once the consequences have settled in. And now, that is exactly what is happening. They no longer wake up with the certainty that you will be there. They no longer have the privilege of knowing that no matter what they do, no matter how they treat you, they can always count on you to stay. That security is gone, and with it, so is their illusion of control. Because for the first time, they are seeing you as you truly are, not as someone who needed them, but as someone who was always destined to rise without them. And you have risen. You have stepped into a season where you are no longer defined by your past, no longer held back by the expectations of those who never truly saw you. You are no longer chasing, no longer pleading, no longer waiting for people to give you what you have now learned to give yourself. And as you continue to move forward, as you embrace the abundance, the love, the peace that was always meant for you, you realize something that changes everything. You don't miss them. Not because you don't remember, not because the pain didn't shape you, but because who you were when you loved them, when you fought for them, when you sacrificed for them, that version of you no longer exists. You have outgrown the spaces that required you to make yourself small. You have outgrown the need to prove your worth to those who were never worthy of it. You have outgrown the cycle of giving endlessly while receiving nothing in return. And now, everything you once longed for is finding its way to you, not because you chased it, but because you finally became the version of yourself strong enough to receive it. This is the part they never saw coming. They thought losing them would break you, but instead it freed you. You have become everything they once feared you would be: self-sufficient, at peace, untouchable. And as they sit in the emptiness they created, struggling to make sense of a world without your presence, you walk forward without hesitation, not looking back, not regretting, not mourning what was lost, but embracing what is to come. Because you are no longer seeking. You have become the very thing they never wanted you to realize: whole, complete, powerful beyond measure. And for the first time in your life, you are no longer waiting for someone to give you the life you deserve. You are stepping into it fully, without apology, without hesitation. And the best part? You did it all without them. They were never afraid of losing you. They never believed you would leave, never imagined a version of you that would put yourself first. They assumed you would always be there, always available, always willing to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. And so, they never respected your boundaries because they never thought they needed to. They took, and when you had nothing left, they simply expected you to keep going. But what they failed to realize is that every soul has a limit, and the moment you chose yourself, everything changed. For too long, you made excuses for them. You convinced yourself that their actions weren't intentional, that they didn't mean to hurt you, that if you just gave a little more, they would finally see your worth. You bent over backward, sacrificing your own well-being to maintain relationships that were never meant to last. You gave love to people who never learned how to return it, poured energy into spaces that only drained you, and ignored every warning sign because you believed in their potential more than you believed in your own peace. But something inside of you shifted, slowly at first, a quiet whisper telling you that something wasn't right, that you were giving too much, that you were losing yourself in the process of keeping others whole. And then, one day, the whisper became a roar. You woke up and saw things for what they truly were. The love you thought was unconditional had always come with terms, The support you thought was mutual had always been one-sided. The relationships you fought to keep were never built on equal ground, and the moment you realized that, the weight of it all became unbearable. And that was the moment you chose yourself. You started saying no, not with anger, but with clarity. You stopped over-explaining, stopped justifying, stopped giving people access to you simply because they once had it. You realized that your peace, your energy, your time, these were things too valuable to be given to those who had no intention of protecting them. And as you set those boundaries, something remarkable happened. The ones who had once relied on your silence began to panic. They didn't know what to do with a version of you that refused to tolerate their disrespect. They tried to push, to manipulate, to guilt you back into the role you once played. But this time, it didn't work. Because you had learned the most important truth of all. You are not responsible for managing the emotions of those who refuse to manage themselves. You saw the patterns for what they were. The guilt trips, the sudden affection, the promises of change that never lasted. These were nothing more than attempts to regain control. They weren't sorry for how they treated you. They were sorry they lost access to the version of you that tolerated it. But you are not that person anymore. You no longer exist in spaces where your presence is taken for granted. You no longer entertain apologies that come with no real action. You no longer allow people to drain you and call it love. And now, as they stand on the outside looking in, they finally understand. They thought you were their constant, their safety net, their fallback plan. They believed that no matter how many times they neglected your needs, you would always find your way back. But for the first time, they are realizing that you were never theirs to control. They see it in the way you carry yourself now, in the way you speak, in the way you move, in the way your energy no longer bends to accommodate theirs. They feel the absence of you not just in their daily lives, but in their sense of self. Because the power they once had over you was never real. It was only ever the illusion of control. And now they have lost it forever. Because you have stepped into a life where your peace is your priority, where your energy is sacred, where you no longer allow others to define your worth, to dictate your choices, to take from you without giving in return. You have become the gatekeeper of your own existence, and that is something they never expected. But this isn't about them anymore. This isn't about their regret, their realization, their longing for the version of you they once knew. This is about you and the life you are building. One that is no longer dictated by what others expect of you. One that is filled with the kind of love that doesn't demand sacrifice. One that is rooted in respect, in balance, in mutual effort. And as you move forward, you do so without hesitation, without looking back, without carrying the weight of those who were never meant to walk with you in this next season. You no longer seek closure from those who were never capable of giving it. You no longer waste energy explaining yourself to those who were never listening. You no longer allow anyone to disturb the peace you fought so hard to create. Because the truth is, they were never afraid of losing you. But now, they are terrified of living without you. And that is a burden they will have to carry alone. They swore they didn't need you. When you walked away, they acted as if your absence meant nothing, as if life would go on unchanged. They convinced themselves that losing you was a temporary inconvenience, something they could easily recover from. They carried on, with pride, pretending that you were just another passing chapter in their story, that they would move forward without a second thought. But now, reality has settled in. And no matter how hard they try to deny it, no matter how much they attempt to distract themselves, they can feel the weight of what they lost. At first, they didn't notice the shift. They filled the silence with distractions, surrounded themselves with new people, convinced themselves that your presence had no real impact. They laughed, they boasted, they pretended that life without you was just as good, if not better than before. But as time passed, as the initial distractions began to fade, as they sat in the stillness of their own thoughts, the truth became impossible to ignore. The void left behind was not one that could be easily filled. because you were never just another person in their life. You were their anchor, their foundation, the quiet force that kept everything steady. You were the one who listened when no one else cared to, the one who showed up when everyone else disappeared, the one who carried burdens they never acknowledged. And now, without you there to hold it all together, the cracks they ignored for so long are beginning to show. They tell themselves that it shouldn't hurt this much, that they shouldn't still be thinking about you, still feeling your absence, still looking for traces of you in places where you no longer exist. They try to push it down, to convince themselves that they are fine, that they have moved on, that they never needed you to begin with. But the truth is, they needed you more than they ever admitted, more than they ever even realized, and now they are left with the consequences of their own actions. The apologies will come, the messages will arrive, carefully crafted to sound sincere, to pull at the parts of you that once cared too much, forgave too easily, gave second chances without hesitation. They will tell you that they have changed, that they finally see your worth, that they regret every moment they took you for granted. They will speak as if they are filled with newfound wisdom, as if losing you opened their eyes, as if they are ready to be the person you always needed them to be. Some of them will tell you that they are ready to be the person you always needed them to be, but deep down you already know the truth. This is not about love. This is not about regret. This is about fear. Because what they are afraid of is not just losing you, it's losing the power they once had over you. It's realizing that the version of you who once tolerated their mistreatment no longer exists. That the person who once fought for them, who once tried so desperately to be enough for them, has finally walked away without looking back. They fear the new you, the one who no longer begs, no longer explains, no longer accepts the bare minimum, the one who has learned that love should never come at the expense of your own self-worth. And so they will try. They will try to get back in, to find a way to remind you of who you used to be, to make you second-guess the strength you have built in their absence. They will remind you of the good times, of the laughter, of the memories that once held you together. They will say all the right things, play all the right roles, wear the mask of someone who has finally learned their lesson. But what they don't realize is that it is too late. Because you are not that person anymore. You no longer find comfort in the same patterns that once hurt you. You no longer seek validation from those who never truly saw you. You no longer hold space for people who only come back when they realize what they have lost. You have stepped into something greater, something they were never meant to be a part of. And that is the part that haunts them the most. Not just that you are gone, but that you are thriving without them, that your glow has only intensified, that your spirit has only grown stronger, that your world has expanded in ways they never imagined. They see it, they feel it, and they know, without a doubt, that they will never again have access to the version of you they once took for granted. So let them regret, let them reach out, let them sit in the emptiness they created, but do not, for even a second, mistake their longing for love. Do not mistake their apologies for change. Do not mistake their absence of control for the presence of sincerity. Because if they had truly valued you, they would have never risked losing you in the first place. And now, the only thing left for them to do is watch. Watch as you continue to rise, as you continue to build, as you continue to step into the life that was waiting for you all along. Watch as you find love that does not require suffering, friendships that do not require self-sacrifice, opportunities that do not require you to shrink yourself to fit. Watch as you walk through doors they never believed you could open, as you become everything they once doubted you could be. This is your moment. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you were always enough, that you were always capable, that you were never defined by the people who failed to love you properly. This is your moment to step into everything you deserve, without hesitation, without fear, without guilt. Because the truth is, you never needed them. They needed you. And now they are left to face the reality of what that truly means. They never thought the day would come when they would have to navigate life without your light. They never imagined a world where you were no longer shining for them, warming them, softening their darkness with your presence. You were their sun, the one who brought clarity to their confusion, stability to their chaos, and comfort to their uncertainty. They took and took, standing in your glow without ever stopping to wonder what kept your fire burning. They assumed that no matter how much they drained you, no matter how little they gave in return, your warmth would always be theirs to rely on. But even the sun has limits. Even the most radiant light will fade when it is neglected, unappreciated, and expected to shine without rest. You spent years being everything to everyone, lighting the way for those who refused to find their own path, carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. You exhausted yourself trying to keep them warm, while they never once stopped to ask if you were burning out. And when the moment finally came, when you had given everything you had, when you had nothing left to offer but your own exhaustion, they looked at you with confusion, as if they never saw the fire dimming. Because they never believed you would leave. They thought you needed them more than they needed you. They convinced themselves that you were dependent on their presence, on their approval, on the role you played in their lives. They mistook your loyalty for obligation, your kindness for naivety, your endurance for an unbreakable contract that required you to stay no matter how little they gave in return. They thought they had you trapped in a cycle of self-sacrifice, so deeply conditioned to give that you would never dare to walk away. But what they didn't realize was that your light was never for them alone. It was never meant to be confined to those who refused to cherish it. You were never meant to exist solely to make their lives easier, to be their source of warmth while they left you standing in the cold. And the day you chose yourself, the day you finally stepped away from the spaces that only drained you, the entire illusion shattered. And now they sit in the darkness. At first, they pretended it didn't matter. They convinced themselves they could replace what they lost, that someone else could provide what you once did. But no matter how hard they search, no matter how many people they surround themselves with, no one can replicate the energy you carried. No one can match the depth of your presence, the way your spirit lifted others without effort, the way your love transformed everything it touched. They feel the absence in ways they never expected. The conversations are emptier. The victories feel hollow. The spaces you once filled now feel cold. They move through life as if nothing has changed, but deep down, they know. They know they lost something they will never find again. They know they let go of something rare, something sacred, something they should have protected. But their loss is not your concern. You see, you never stopped being the sun. You never stopped shining, never stopped radiating the same warmth and brilliance you always had. The only difference now is that you are no longer wasting your light on those who never valued it. You are no longer dimming yourself to make others comfortable. You are no longer setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Instead, you are stepping into spaces where your light is recognized for what it truly is: a gift, not a given; a force, not a convenience; a presence that cannot be replaced. And as you continue to rise, as you continue to embrace the life that was always meant for you, those who once took you for granted will have no choice but to sit in the darkness they created. They will watch from the shadows, longing for the warmth they once had but never appreciated. They will replay every moment, every conversation, every memory of you, searching for the moment they lost you. And in that reflection, they will finally understand: losing you was not just losing a person. It was losing the light that made their world feel whole. But you are not looking back, because this is your season to shine. Not for them, not for the ones who only knew how to take, but for yourself. For the life that is waiting for you, for the love that will honor you, for the opportunities that align with the person you have become. This is your time to step into everything you were always meant to be, knowing that you were never the one who needed them. They needed you. And now they will have to learn how to live in the darkness of a world without your light. You have waited long enough. You have given enough. You have endured, sacrificed, and carried more than your share. But now your time has come. This is your season of restoration, your moment to reclaim everything that was taken, overlooked, or dismissed. No more waiting, no more doubting, no more holding back. The life you were meant to live is here, and it is yours to step into. The universe has been watching. Every tear, every struggle, every silent moment of pain you thought went unnoticed. It was all seen, all recorded, all counted, and now the balance is shifting. What you thought was lost was never truly gone. It was simply waiting for you to become the person strong enough to receive it. That moment is now. This is not the time to question your worth. This is not the time to hesitate. You have already been through the fire. You have already learned the lessons. You have already proven your strength in ways most people never will. Now, all that's left is for you to claim what is yours, to step forward, without fear, without apology, without hesitation. If you know deep in your soul that this message is for you, if you feel the shift happening, if you are ready to receive everything that has been waiting for you, declare it now. Comment, "I am ready," below, and let the universe know that you are stepping into your power. Let the world see that you are done playing small. Let every force that tried to hold you back understand that their time is up. And if you know another chosen one who needs to hear this, share this message with them. Because this is not just about you, this is about an awakening. More people need to know that they are not alone, that their struggles were not in vain, that their restoration is coming. Be the messenger. Be the proof that transformation is real. Your time is now. Your power is returning. Your restoration has begun. Step into it. Own it. Claim it.